Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Now today's first story is one that we covered in 2022 in October time, but it now has a new update. So if you do want to skip parts of the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. And it's from Throwaway Pitiful One and says, wife, female 28, held a talent show at our wedding reception. A friend who sang networked with a guest who wants to potentially work with her. She's become bitter since. I, male 28, knew her since college, and I'll get that out of the way first. The past few days have shown a different side of her that's a little surprising because Kate is her best friend from college. My wife, Nancy, wanted to do a mini talent show at our reception, and she talked it up beforehand too. She read a poem that she made for the event, and Kate performed a song that she wrote. Long story short, one of the guests who I invited is into producing, and he reached out to her after she performed. They exchanged information, and Kate was really excited. He wanted to network with her following the reception, and she even thanked my wife for hosting the talent show over text. But Nancy became really bitter about it, and that's why I'm writing this. She hasn't responded to Kate's message, and she said she regretted doing the talent show too. She also asked me to block Edward, the producer, on my socials and contacts, and I told her that seemed a bit much. She didn't like my answer and said that I was wrong to not take her side after just getting married. But I told her that she should be happy for her friend. She didn't like that either and vented to some in our friend group about how Kate was bragging, but some of them disagreed. She said she didn't want to hang out with them for the time being, and that included me too. Two of her girlfriends even texted me that she was overreacting and that they were also surprised to see her act that way. They also asked if she was okay too. My dad is suggesting counseling and said that asking me to remove friends is an unhealthy way to start a marriage, and I'm honestly more than a little scared. I asked if she'd be open to counseling, but she said there was no need because Kate was her first friend, and I shouldn't choose Kate over her. I just want to ask what to do next since she refused counseling and sees no issue cutting off our friends. Edit. I want to add that Nancy complained that her poem didn't get as good of a reception as Kate's song. Kate didn't study music in college but practices on the side, and her text was really thankful for the opportunity that the talent show provided. Kate is also engaged to her long-time boyfriend. I can remember thinking the first time around, like it being, I don't know, strange to have a talent show at a wedding. I've never heard of one before. I mean, it might be an absolute fantastic idea. And you know, if it's your wedding, it's your choice in the end. But if you're going to get offended by it, if someone, you know, does better than you and want to cut off your friends because of it, that sure isn't a healthy reaction. And asking you to cut off your friends, this is absolutely a time to put your foot down. But Wonderland resident says your dad is absolutely right. This isn't a healthy way to start a marriage or a healthy way to act in general. And she should get counseling. But if she refuses, I honestly can't say what you should do other than trying to talk some sense into her. Whatever happens, don't give in to her unreasonable demands. You and your friends haven't done anything wrong, and you shouldn't have to cut them off. Opie says, the fact that two of her girlfriends even reached out to see if she was okay made me even more concerned too. She doesn't want counseling, and I honestly think it's pretty petty. Also a little scared that she might cut me off for not agreeing with her the same way she did some of our friends. I don't know why she's so hung up about her best friend. Wonderland replies to OP and says maybe it's stress. I've heard getting married and going through such a big life change can make people act weird. Or maybe there's something going on between them that you don't know about. Maybe she'll snap out of it, but whatever it is, she seems to be overreacting and that isn't fair to any of you. And this might sound harsh, but if she does turn out to be willing to cut you off or disagreeing with her, then I would just let her go if I were you. I know you just got married and I'm sure you love her, but if she doesn't let this go and is willing to ruin your relationship and your relationship with your friends over it, then she's honestly just too immature to be married and you deserve better. Doesn't mean you should rush into a divorce necessarily, but it does mean you should reevaluate your relationship and decide if you're willing to put up with the possibility of her getting worse rather than better. Try talking to her about how the situation is making you feel and about how you're worried about the potential of her cutting you off. Maybe that'll open her eyes a bit and it'll dawn on her that she's being petty and actively harming you and her friends. And if not, and she does wind up cutting you off, consider it dodging a bullet that you found out this early in your marriage instead of years down the line. OP responds again saying, I'm honestly shocked at how much she's harping on this even a few days after the reception. My dad even said to give her a few days in case she's just overwhelmed about everything. But a lot of it seems to be jealousy about Kate, as she said Kate would have nothing without her talent show and stuff like that. I'm trying to see it from the perspective of giving her some time and the overwhelming side, but I tried to talk to her again about it. So roughly a month later, OP updated and said, it's been a little over 2 weeks since my first post and I've had some time to try and process. A lot of it still feels surreal having known her since my early 20s and the 180 after the wedding. I want to address a few things that were asked in my first post before getting to the update. Nancy and Kate were not the only ones who performed in the talent show. During planning, Nancy said she wanted to showcase her friends and how awesome and proud she was to have them. She also said it was a bonding thing between her girlfriends from our friend group, and the girls were the ones who had performed. However, given her post-reception 180, it really surprised me in comparison to her pre-talent show mindset. A few people commented that she didn't need to have a talent show to read the poem she made for the wedding. She could have just read it at any time as the bride. The reasoning I'm writing this post is because of something else that came up and led to a conversation. She had a vacation coming up, but she no longer wants to go on it. In the time since my first post, she's continued to have random mood swings due to thinking about Kate. Sometimes that's venting about how Kate would have nothing without her, or getting really quiet and distant, even while eating. She also still upset at her girlfriend who she vented to about Kate. But when they disagreed and called her out for being bitter over a talent show no one forced her to have, she told me to cut off our friend group along with blocking the producer and girlfriends too. When I disagreed, she became distant and said I was choosing them over her. My dad suggested counseling and talking to her again because asking me to cut off friends was an unhealthy start to the relationship. So I talked to her after my first post and asked if she'd be open to it. But she said there was no need because all I had to do was cut them off. She also said I was choosing them over her, and that she wouldn't go on our vacation until I did. When I asked her why Kate bothered her so much, she said she tried to publish in the past, a novel, and didn't get any hand-me-downs then. But when I remind her that my friend was a producer on the side in his basement, she said I should have known better than to invite him, as if I should have known he would have liked Kate's song. When I told her that I wouldn't block the producer / the entire friend group, she said I was entitled like Kate, and that she wanted a break because I didn't care about her. I told her that I love her, but didn't think it was healthy to cut off everyone. I also told her that she should be happy for her friend because Kate was really grateful, but she didn't seem to care. She has since gone to stay with her parents and left some of her things in our apartment. I talked to my dad after she ignored texts and calls for a few days, and he suggested bringing up an annulment because it had gone too far. Her parents have also ignored my calls, but I want to clarify Kate's text before I'm done. Kate wasn't arrogant or anything to Nancy. All she did was thank her for putting together a talent show that allowed her to network with a producer after the wedding, and she offered to take her out to lunch as a thanks. There was no arrogance from Kate. The producer is also engaged, as some people inquired about too. I'm just really surprised and hurt that her bitterness turned me into a bad guy for inviting my producer friend as if I was supposed to see into the future and not invite him. Edit. Nancy got the idea to make a poem for the reception after watching the poet, Amanda Gorman, read her works at the inauguration and Super Bowl. She also said that it wasn't out of place for her to read at the reception when most people watching football aren't smart enough to appreciate poetry. Just over a month later again, OP comes back and says just wanted to come back to conclude this because it's been helpful to hear opinions and get everything out. A lot of people asked how I was in messages and there were too many people to reply to. We're currently in the process of a divorce. She's staying with her parents and I've had some time to process and see things differently. I want to touch on two things that's happened since my update. The first is a Facebook post she made about me and the guests. In her post she said she was supposed to win, and that it was an unwritten rule for the bride to win, as if wedding talent shows are normal. She also accused them of smiting her on her day when no one knew about the talent show beforehand except her participating friends. She then accused me of taking Kate's side instead of comforting her as her new husband. But taking her side meant cutting her off our friend group as she had in the aftermath. I don't know how her parents feel after she called out both sides of the guests, but I really don't care at this point. She also wanted me to cut off the producer friend, Edward, who approached Kate after she sang her original song and asked if they wanted to collab sometime. And I want to focus on that. I talked to Edward recently about everything, including how she wanted me to cut him off, and he couldn't believe how much it affected her. Nancy and I watched a football game at his house with him and his fiancée some months back, and he has a day job in an office. When I told him about how Nancy was jealous of Kate's big break, he couldn't believe it and said that he had planned to let Kate use his audio interface to plug into her guitar and record a high-quality instrumental of her original along with his microphone too. He also said he wasn't great at mixing and was taking online courses to learn, so he was going to suggest that she commission someone to mix and enhance the files they'd record because he was far from a professional. He's a really chill guy, but he couldn't stop laughing over how Nancy thought that he was all that. He only wanted to use his interface to give her a high-quality recording after learning that she didn't have the equipment and recorded her original on her phone. He and his fiancée planned to have her for dinner, just like they had me and Nancy over for football, and record it in the basement afterwards. Looking back in hindsight, it's crazy how you can be blinded to things, but I never imagined just how crazy she could get. I didn't say this in my first two posts because I thought it might overshadow her actions, but she sometimes posts about women empowerment on her socials, and I recently thought about that for one reason. When I asked her why she wanted to have a talent show, she said she wanted to emphasize the importance of having good friends because they were important to her relationship. But as I look at it now, perhaps it was never about that. Nancy was bothered the second that Kate's song got a better reception than her, and she doubled down when she vented to two of her girlfriends after the wedding who called her out for being jealous. And that made her demand I also cut off her friend group. To everyone who asked what her poem was about, it was about women empowerment and the importance of having good friends and family when starting a family. And she told me the premise beforehand, although she never showed me the poem. She wanted it to be a surprise, but I never had a chance to see it on paper after the wedding for reasons. Many people also corrected how she said that Kate received a hand-me-down opportunity at the wedding, but the proper term was hand-out, as many corrected. I really appreciate everyone who offered advice as it helped me a lot mentally, not to mention looking back at how crazy it all was, just hoping to fully get over it as time goes on, but I've gotten over some of it recently. And 6 months later, OP does update again and says, I really thought my last update would be my last. But Nancy apparently had other ideas. This update doesn't really involve me and is mostly for those who've reached out via DMs because I can't reply to all of them, so this is more convenient. Months later, I'm grateful that everything came out when it did, and we are officially no longer together. She wanted nothing to do with me after accusing me of taking Kate's side by refusing to cut off friends who said she overreacted when she vented about Kate stealing her thunder by getting a better reception for her song, among other hateful things she said about her, and that made the process easier. However, months later, Nancy's still not over it, but I want to give an update on Kate first. Kate reached out to me towards the end of the divorce process because Nancy took out her frustration on her, and she told me things I didn't know. I mentioned in my first update that Kate sent a text thanking Nancy for the opportunity to sing at the wedding after it led to her meeting the producer, and she sent shortly after the reception. However, unbeknownst to me, Nancy sent her DMs blaming her for the divorce before it was official, and that was news to me. She told me she was sorry for performing at the wedding along with the divorce, but I told her that she had nothing to apologize for. Her best friend, Nancy, asked her to perform and she simply did. But Nancy didn't stop at DMs. Since my last update and the divorce becoming official, Nancy went online to make her feelings public. Not just about Kate, but the friends who said she was overreacting too. She said that her friends should have talked her out of the talent show because friends look after each other. When the talent show was her idea entirely, that she pushed for against suggestions otherwise. She accused them of being fake friends who never had her back and sided with Kate over her, and that she had the nerve to tag them too. However, she left the worst for Kate. She accused Kate and her friends of setting her up on her day, and she made a separate Facebook post to rant about Kate. She also called her a B, among other things. She also disclosed some mental health challenges, medications from Kate's past, and it was petty and very inappropriate. I want to reiterate that Kate was her best friend long before me, but she also disclosed a very personal event that I never knew about from Kate's life which was wrong. It led to people finding out that Kate hadn't told and caused her a lot of stress from what I've heard. Some of the people in Nancy's friend group reached out to me before the divorce too. And one of them, we call Hannah, who knew Nancy before me too, said that she knew about Nancy's struggles to publish as she vented years back, after I told her about my talk with Nancy where she brought up her publishing struggles. And she said that many of them tried to encourage her. However, she never saw the jealous side of her despite knowing her for much longer. And she thinks it was a culmination of wedding stress among other things. But she didn't want to chalk it up to just that because she said that was a deeper insecurity. She also told me not to beat myself up too much because her friend group never saw that side of her too. And they knew her for years before me. Nancy's friend group has since cut her off, but the last thing I'll say is on Kate. Kate and her friends have been really supportive and even apologized for not talking her out of their talent show beforehand. I told them that they had nothing to apologize for because Nancy accused me of inviting my producer friend and not magically knowing that he would have networked with Kate. Hannah said that Kate's been really hurt about the sensitive post and having to explain to people she never told. She also said that Kate's thinking of trying to go after Nancy legally, but she's not sure if anything can be done since it was on Facebook, now deleted, although she got screenshots. But it's apparently taken a toll on her mental health to the point that she's trying to see her options. I won't come back to this again because it doesn't really involve me at this point, but I'm trying my best to be supportive of her too because she didn't deserve any of this. But I hope it all works out for her in time, whether she decides to pursue legally or not. Holy shit, that's not the behavior of a stable person, is it? Look, I'm not trying to excuse it in any way, shape or form, but pretty much cutting everyone out of your life over a talent show is just insane. And one of the questions I really wanted to know, but we never saw it in this story is, and we probably would never find out because we're not going to know, is what her parents think about this. What have they been told what's been going on? Because if you saw your daughter going through this, you'll be and acting in this way towards her ex-husband now, her friends, and cutting everyone off over this talent show, you know, revealing people's personal details on social media. Holy shit. I'm going to turn this one to you guys and we'll have another little story in a second. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to one more story. And this story is from That Technician 9244 and says, am I the arsehole for walking out of a wedding I was part of and ruining the day? I dated my ex-boyfriend John for 4 years and got serious enough where we started planning for our future. Wedding, kids, etc. I thought we were pretty happy, but last year he dumped me pretty suddenly. I tried to figure out what went wrong, but he said it was personal and that I should respect his space. During this time, my best friend Stacy and her fiance Tom were my rocks, letting me crash at their place and just being overwhelmingly supportive and loving. When Stacy asked me to be a maid of honor, I thought it was a no-brainer and happily took on the task. Fast forward to what happened this weekend. The morning of the wedding, Tom asked me to meet him for breakfast super early in the AM before all of the festivities. I thought it was weird, but assumed he maybe wanted me to pass something on to Stacy. What happened instead was that Tom let me know that a few days prior, Stacy admitted to him that she had an affair with John, which was what led to my breakup. He said that Stacy wanted to come clean to start their marriage fresh and that he was forgiving her to move forward. He had gone back and forth between telling me and finally decided to spill the beans. I guess he had expected me to forgive Stacy too because the affair was so long ago. The opposite pretty much happened and I just walked out on the wedding. It ended up causing a huge mess because I was basically running the whole show. Stacy made me do everything, so she didn't even know what was happening at certain times or who to call. Not only that, but everyone realized that the maid of honor wasn't there. She had headshots and bios of the party on her wedding page, and news of the affair eventually got out because her cousin knew John. Stacy and Tom have both been slandering me online now, saying that I ruined their once-in-a-lifetime moment. Some of their friends are on their side, saying that I should have handled the situation more privately, and at least stuck out the wedding since it was so last minute. I personally don't know what Tom expected, but either way I've been getting bombarded with texts and I heard that Stacy has been so upset she's had to take time off work, which does make me feel like an arsehole, especially since I've been ignoring her calls. I'm not usually one for turning to social media to make your arguments public. But, you know, they've already started with this shit. Stacey and Tom, you said, have been slandering you online now. I'll be replying to that with the real story of what happened. That Stacey ruined their once in a lifetime moment by cheating with John. What an absolute pair of Burks. What were they expecting from that, to approach you on the morning of their wedding to reveal this information? Expecting you to just go, oh, okay, yep, no worries, we'll move past that. I'll carry on being your maid of honor, no problem there. And she didn't even tell you herself as well. So you'd still have to, like, I don't know, are you going to meet her just before the wedding? Holy shit, imagine how awkward that would be. Of course, not the arsehole in this situation, but Iron Chest says hard not the arsehole in this one. Was walking out of the wedding the day of a nice thing to do? Not particularly, but what on earth did they expect would happen by telling you? And on the wedding day, they knew they were playing with fire. They chose when to tell you this information. Simply walking out because, whoa, Nelly. I bet there were a ton of conflict and emotions. It was pretty adult. You didn't cause a huge scene. You simply extricated yourself from the situation. Not the arsehole. Whoa, Nelly, indeed. Sash says, so wait. Your best friend had an affair with your then fiance. He breaks up with you over it, cancelling your happily ever after. She asked you to be a maid of honor, but everyone was upset with you because you found out she slept with your fiance and can't suck it up for a few hours to make her day great, to start a happily ever after. Not the arsehole. And one more comment from Apprehensive Care, who says, no, Stacey. You ruined your once in a lifetime moment by cheating on Tom and fucking my boyfriend John just before the wedding. You cheated on your husband and you cheated on your maid of honor. You betrayed everyone close to you. I'd copy and paste that everywhere on the internet. Every online slander. I'd post it 1,000 times each time she posted anything about me. That would be the boilerplate response, not the arsehole. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.